I think we're live. Are we live? Yay, we are live. Okay, there we are. Woo. Hi, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we are. Welcome to part 2 of our OLAS debrief. So we usually have one debrief a month, but the last one was super juicy. And we were like, hey, do you want to do a part 2? Do you want to do a part 2 next week? I'm still going to be integrating my ayahuasca journey, which 1,000%, she's still talking to me. Maybe that's a good time to chat. I'll have better answers now than I probably will even next week because the dialogue is still happening. So I'm kind of an open book today, and I don't really have an agenda. I put it's really nice to see you guys. I put an audio in your OLAS group today that if you're in sabbatical and or holistic healer, you also saw. And it was funny because I put it into holistic healer and sab, and then it was like, of course you guys should hear it. It's all the same energy, right? Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that, Lauren. Aloha to you too, Bonnie. It's wonderful to see you. So, and obviously mixed reactions, right, to that audio, because it's medicine that will land with people based on where they're sitting, right? It's like, it's a little bit of a paradigm shift in my own awareness, but it's also really important because, as I was saying in one of the groups, there was a little bit of holding me accountable in a loving way during the journey, but holding me accountable for the fact that sometimes there's codependency that happens. Do you know what I mean? There's a very fine line between receiving support in a good way as you're going through a challenge and then expecting people to fix things for you or expecting to be rescued. And I think that part of the problem in our society is that we think somebody else is going to solve it for us. You know, and if it's not a person and a relationship, then we end up thinking it's a doctor who's going to fix it. Oh, I finally found a doctor who's going to, fix all my health problems. Really? And so, but we're constantly looking to place hope in somebody else's hands. Maybe she's going to do it. Maybe they're going to do it. Maybe this new doctor is going to do it. Maybe that new therapist is finally going to say the thing. It's outside. And that's right, Cynthia. And I saw your very powerful comment about that like smack in the head moment of like, holy shit. But I don't want to just give it all back to you and say you have to figure it out and you're on your own, and I mean that's not my message. I want to be really, really clear about that. We are here to support each other, and the wisdom that's in our Facebook spaces, whether you're in sabbatical, holistic healer, or just OLAS on its own, it's not that those aren't places to go to be nourished and supported, but there's a fine line between going in there in a healthy, clean way and saying, I'm going through a challenging time. I need to be able to work with the energies better. What suggestions do you guys have if you've gone through something similar, rather than saying, fix me, it's like, do you know what I mean? One is a genuine inquiry around, I want to improve, I want to grow, I'm trying to hold the space. If you have suggestions, offering of support are appreciated, versus like, help me, feed me, fix me, solve me. That those two energy streams are not equal. And so the one allows people to partner with you in service of your growth and your development. And it's really important that we share our problems with other people, because we learn that way. Sometimes you're going through things that I haven't gone through before. And I don't necessarily know how to tell you to navigate it because I haven't been in that exact circumstance. So I learn by sort of helping you and by watching you and by seeing how you work through, so that, later down the road when I'm helping someone who's experiencing that, or when I'm experiencing that same challenge, because at some point, everything I go through, you're going to go through, and everything you go through, I'm going to go through. It's just a matter of timing. Did you go first or did I go first? So I really do love genuinely knowing what's going on in your world and thinking about how I can be of service to you. But that's different from saying, or even suggesting that I'm going to fix it, or somebody else in the group is going to fix it, or we're going to enable you to stay stuck, because that's not helping you. If we just keep saying, yep, woe is me, woe is you, gosh, that sucks, that's just terrible, wow, 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 like that just reinforces you being where you are, rather than saying, and now what? Now what? Now where? Because that is the question that gets you unstuck from this moment on the exhale to being able to like direct the arrow a little bit. Like the arrow's over here and this isn't feeling good. I need to reposition the arrow a little bit. Oh, thank you, Santa Priya. It's really cool to wear her art, I have to say. And a lot of you have this tank top too, so I hope you're enjoying it as well. That's right. And I will tell you, like, all of my early dysfunctional love relationships were dysfunctional because on some level, conscious or subconscious, I thought that person was gonna save me. And then I had to really confront the fact that they, not only were they not, but they could not. And then I had to get over my resentment about that, because on some subconscious level, I thought they should save me, right? Does this like sound familiar? And then once you let go of all that, you're like, okay, he's not going to save me. It's not his fault. He can't save me. And she's not going to save me. And that's not going to save me. And that can of beer isn't going to save me. Okay. Let me breathe through that. And it's like, so what is going to save me? That's where you get to the really big, juicy questions, right? Hey, Ina, I don't know, actually. That lately here when it comes to product, I'm kind of the last to know about when we're getting things back in stock, but I will find out for you. That's right. So I do think you're going to save you, but if it was that easy, we would all do it. It isn't that easy. It isn't like switch on, switch off. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, all right, today is the day I'm going to save me, because then you get to the bigger questions even still. First sip of kombucha of the day. It's a holy experience, I have to tell you. Okay, then you get to the big good questions about how. How are you going to save you? What do you need to learn? Who do you need to learn it from, right? I think so too. Olia says, I think most of us are here to save ourselves and others. And I think you're accurate. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is the real work. We are here to save ourselves, to learn, to make mistakes, because that's ultimately how we learn. Oh, I tried that, didn't work, let me try something else. Oh, I tried that, I really fucked that up, let me try something else. And then we're here to learn through those mistakes and experiences how to have deeper compassion for ourselves, which allows us to have deeper compassion for other people, because then we realize, oh, everybody's as screwed up as I am. I haven't cornered the market on that. Okay, so now we're all screwed up, so now I'm not going to judge anybody, right? But it's when you find yourself lashing out, that's when you know you're right on the edge of your transformation. Let me say that again. When you find yourself lashing out at other people, that's how you know you are right on the edge of your transformation. And that's the shitty part of it. Because that is, you have to push past that. The lashing out is the final step before you are able to roll all that energy back up into you and integrate it. Our ego and our human self does one more thing of just one final lash out before we finally get that mirrored back to us and we say, okay, this is my work. I need to do this. And that final lash out can be really scary to witness for other people. It can be scary to experience it in yourself. Some people lash out. You know what I mean? Like scream, yell, get super pissed. Some people lash in. So they turn all that on themselves, and I think that's how all of us have autoimmune diseases, because we take all that natural anger that happens at your growth stages, and we instead of expressing it outward, which is a little bit healthier, maybe a little scary, but it's definitely healthier, we yell inside. Do you yell inside? Because I yell inside at myself. And so then all of that rage goes back into me. And then my body starts going, I don't like you to my intestines, and I don't like you to my brain. My body starts trying to push that energy out. And as it does it, it rejects the body systems. And that's the root of autoimmune disease. Right? Santa Priya says, that's me. I lash in, I close myself completely, right? And Cecilia, right? Blocking the crap out of the throat chakra. That's right. So Maria is functional. Maria says, I lash out. But great, because Maria, at least, she's going through the same shit we all are, but at least your throat chakra isn't blocked. And so, kudos to you for that, right? In some ways, I think it's better to let it out, because it's just as ugly on the inside. But, we're much more apt to show ourselves the ugly than want to show other people the ugly. So that turning within is both the good and the bad, right? That's right. Nathan says, I've been setting my projections, expectations from a love interest, and having to remind himself not to be upset that things don't always go the way I want. And it's learning to live in the story that you're in. All of us have the story as we wanted it to be. I love my life. Is this the life I thought I was going to be living? At many different points in my life, the answer is no. And if I'd had my way, my life today would look very different. And I don't think it would be better. What the vision I had of how my life was going to turn out, this isn't exactly it. But this is the story I'm in. And I will tell you, this is the healthy story. I had two paths, and I can see so clearly if I'd kept going down that one path that I thought I wanted, that would have been a very unhealthy, physically unwell lifetime. I could see that I would have been channeling a lot more of the karmic ancestral energy that would have led me down a path of not as strong physical health. And a lot of you, I can tell you, are in the same place. If you hadn't stopped this train and turned that shit around and start to make things right in your life, accurate, true, even, honest, clean, if you hadn't sort of stopped this train, I think, can you not see where the train would have kept going? Are you able to see that accurately? Because I can see some of it for myself, and it's pretty freaky. And so they save you from yourself, ultimately. That's really what it is. They save you from yourself because they give you door number 2. And door number 2 may not look like where you thought you were going to go, but it, right? Thank you for your honesty. I don't know if I would be alive. I would be very unwell. I can tell you that. I would be very unwell. Simone said, I'd be dead or in jail, right? Those kinds of things. It's just, and maybe it wouldn't have been as severe for some of you, right? But I can just see that train going down those tracks. It wasn't good. And so I think ultimately there's this check mechanism of like, you know what, I think, I posted on Facebook the other day about how transformation begins with you getting sick of your own bullshit, right? It's like at a certain point you have to be sick of it. It can't be your husband saying he's sick of it. It can't be your sister saying she's sick of it. It can't be, your cousin saying he's sick of it. It has to be you getting sick of it, and you getting sick of not making progress, and you getting sick of running up against the same shit. Like, really? I'm going through this again? How am I going through this again? And you have to finally get tired enough of it that you break the cycle. And I'm just saying that, it's not, again, maybe I'm like half a step ahead of you. I'm not that far ahead of you, because there's still plenty of places in my life where I can openly say to you, I don't like option A or B. I want option C. You know what I mean? I don't like this and I don't like that, so I want this, but this isn't possible. So let me, it's like you keep pushing and pushing and pushing against these perceived barriers all around you. And ultimately, and this was the big aha of my journey, and I think it's the big aha of life, is the only way out of it, the loop that you're in, is to surrender to it. You actually make more progress when you finally take your hands off that wheel and exhale and just go, okay. I am here. And I'm not saying I'm right all the time, and I'm not saying I've made every good choice, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I'm not going to keep beating my fists against these same walls and expecting a different outcome. It's not going to happen like that. That's right. Cynthia said you have to float, right? And that's true, right? I know surrender doesn't mean we're weak. Look at the wisdom in the feet. So I'm always telling you, you learn a little bit from me, and you're going to learn quite a bit from you. It doesn't mean you're weak. Weakness is continuing to fight. Weakness is continuing to fight. It's really true. Surrender is strength. Surrender is going, all right, I recognize that the world is energetic. And if I am in a constant state of resistance to everything that's happening to me, resisting you, resisting him, resisting her, resisting this, resisting that, I don't want this, I don't like that, blah, 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 blah. If I live in that state, I am going to, at the end of the day, from pushing out so hard, my muscles are going to ache. And I won't be anywhere better. And I won't get there anywhere faster. And so it's like really allowing that moment of surrender. And Millie says, I found it my hardest time. I just had to keep on walking straight to get through. Isn't that true? And in some cases, like, I in these integration conversations I've been having this week with my shaman, it's like, it's not necessarily straight. Sometimes it's around the obstacle. But how many of you are like me? Like, okay, here's me and here's the big obstacle in front of me. And I will sit with my slingshot trying to hit it over and over and over again, the same obstacle, right? And what happens to that obstacle? Nothing. But my arm is tired. So then you're like, well, shit. Let me try going over here with my slingshot. And again, it's like, what's happening to the obstacle? Nothing. But I'm exhausted. And it's like, oh, but there's this really interesting little path right around it, and then I'm done. It's like, does it mean I'm not smart? No, it just means I'm human, and that for a minute it really felt good to sit there with my slingshot and think that I was making some progress because I'm busy. And we talked about busy being good, you know what I mean? So at least I'm busy, I'm doing something, right? And that way, and my shaman talks about this a lot too. He said, how many ceremonies I go to, he said, where people come up to me and they're like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm doing the hard work. I'm working hard. I'm doing the ceremony. I'm leading ceremonies. I'm doing the hard work. And he's like, oh, well, tell me more about the hard work. Oh, well, I'm doing 100 ceremonies, a quarter, and I am, doing, just, it makes it look busy. And it's like, that's not the hard work. The hard work is actually not what happens in ceremony. The hard work is what happens afterward. When you have to sit quietly with the reality of who you are and the truth that you live in and surrender to it. And that doesn't require anything or anyone. It's a quiet conversation between you and God. You know what I mean? But he's like, how many people even in the shamanic community will say, oh yeah, I'm doing the hard work. And he was talking about it in the context of purging, because he said there's so many people who feel like when they have the big vomit, in ayahuasca and all the purging and the diarrhea and the constant vomiting, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm moving the big energy, I'm doing the big stuff. And he's like, little do they realize that for most of us, doing the big work, you don't purge. He's like, the purging is almost like a quick release. The real work is learning how to breathe through that tension and not vomit. And that's just a example from ayahuasca. But he's like, we define what the hard work is. And we think it's about being busy and doing things and even purging and like, oh, see all the hard work I'm doing? And it's like, the hard work is silent. And so if you're making all kinds of noise and doing all kinds of things, I don't know that that's all the hard work. So it's very interesting, right? That's right, Sheree. It's really, really true, right? It's easy to be peaceful when you're in another dimension and God is speaking to you. I don't think you get a trophy for being peaceful when you're in an altered state. But when you come out of that shit and your body is shaking a little bit because you're doing re-entry into third dimension and you're having to then integrate that wisdom and then teach others and then meet resistance. So there's a quote I'm going to share with Sabbatical today, but I'm going to share it with you now too because it feels really, really relevant. You guys are all, what's really beautiful as I come out of my journey is everybody's working the same wisdom right now. Whatever group they're in, it's like the same exact, I can track like a line between everybody. And some people are in resistance to it and some people are embracing it. It doesn't matter because it's like just an energy that's present. It doesn't matter what side of the of the pole you're on, right? That's right. For Country said it's like getting off the hamster wheel and feeling a calm. And indeed, Cindy said the hard work in quantum healing is not the same as 3D. But we only have 3D as a point of reference. If you even see, ayahuasqueros and maestros who do ceremonial work talking about, the big work and all, seeing that as physical, when they're setting that model, that's interesting to me, right? Like, we assume that people who do a lot of ceremonial work are at sort of a higher level of ascension, and it's like, we're all kind of mired in the same stuff. But here's the quote that I think is really powerful. The quote is, "The truth is the truth, no matter how you hold it." The truth is the truth, no matter how you hold it. And the truth is the truth, no matter how you see it. God is God, no matter what you call it. That what you call it doesn't change what it is. Truth is truth, no matter what name you put on it, or how you choose to live it or not live it, or how you choose to integrate it or not integrate it. What you do doesn't change truth. How you name God doesn't change God. Like, there are certain, isn't it? I know it's very meme worthy, I thought. my favorite quote from my shaman this week, by the way, which you might also appreciate. And it was such an intensely deep moment when he said it. This is from him. He looked at me and he said, you're not meant to carry energy. You don't have shelves. You're not meant to carry things. You don't have shelves. And it was just like, it was such a passing comment. And then he went on and kept talking about something else. It was just like, you're not meant to carry things. You don't have shelves anyway. And it was like this passing thing. But the whole thing just stopped me in my tracks. I was like, yeah, I don't have shelves. So why am I carrying other people's shit around with me like it's canned food and I'm stocking up for an emergency? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a pantry. You can't alphabetize your dysfunction and stick it on a shelf and go, well, you know what, I'll deal with that some other time. I'm busy right now, but here, let me let me put a little label on it that says, my bullshit, October 2018. Okay, I'll go deal with that in the new year. But that's what a lot of us do. We like defer it. And then we're like, somebody else gives us their bullshit, and you're like, thank you for that. Okay, Patty, dysfunctional relationships, October 18. All right, thanks, Patty. I'll just, I'll have that right here for you when you're ready. It's like, why are we doing that? It is. And so here's what's interesting to me. Like this, the shift that I'm going through since last Friday, which is when I started the process of going in. My journey was over the weekend, but Friday was kind of my transition point. The transition that I'm going through is a purging of a kind. It's a house cleaning. And it's this idea of really going through and being willing once and for all to look in the cobwebby corners and the junk drawer. I have a junk drawer at my house, and no matter how often I clean it, I turn around and it's just full of absolute worthless shit again. Like, my kids will put like gum wrappers in there and receipts from, take out food and just like shit that nobody should keep, pencil erasers that are broken, and then I'll clean it out, and the next week there's other bullshit. There's like a broken chapstick and a battery that isn't working anymore, and like, and it's a metaphor for like, and I've started to put it on their chore list. Like, listen, you're gonna clean that shit out. Why am I cleaning this every week when it's like your weird broken shit that's in there? You go and clean it out. And it's become this metaphor of like, Cecilia, did you see that? When people sell their cans of BS 4 for $2, it's a special sale. Do you get a gift with purchase? When you buy your 4 cans of BS, do you get a free bullshit keychain? To like, we're laughing. And so there was part of me that hesitated for a minute, because what the audio is really talking about is starting to take more responsibility for how you interact with others energetically, so that you get more out of the relationships, and so that you don't end up in a karmic dynamic where you are putting people in a position where they try to give you something that they're not capable of giving, which creates resentment, which leads to dysfunction in relationships. Like, I'm trying to identify these patterns and help people work through them. And it isn't just for Sage Goddess, do you know what I mean? It's for your life. She was in the journey, she was so much talking about Facebook. And there was this really interesting part where she was talking about likes and loves, and like the new function of like being able to like or love something, or haha, or get angry. And what she said very clearly to me is, it's very interesting to me how all of you in social media, when they give you a new function, you just start using it. You don't stop and ask, why did this come about? Is this good for us? What will this mean? How will this impact people's energy? What's the impact of being able to love something rather than just liking it? And if someone says they're angry about something, like why is it a benefit to express that in that way, absent really understanding what their anger is about, because they're not sharing a comment? And she was saying in the journey that, I mean, it's a trip to talk to the plant medicine about Facebook. But they're very aware, okay, is what I would tell you. And so she said, basically she said, I'm not saying it is bad, but did you even ask? Why are they doing this? Because it's an experiment. It's an emotional experiment. And she was saying, try to focus on comments with people and not on likes and loves. Because the people are looking to the number of likes they get versus the number of loves that they get, and was anybody angry or sad, or did anybody laugh at them? And they're using that to feed ego. Like, see, I was funny. See, I was interesting. Ooh, they loved it more than they liked it. I mean, I've never had that reaction, but people have that reaction with me. There's plenty. I hear a lot of back chatter sometimes, not as much these days as I used to, but I used to have people message me and say, there's private messages happening between people where they have counted the number of times that you liked their posts and the number of times that you liked this other person's posts. And so the whole thread is about, do you like Joe better than you like Jim? And I told them that I don't think it means she doesn't like you if she doesn't like your comment. Maybe she missed it. And I'm thinking to myself, there are threads about this? I mean, I'm just kind of going, really? Like, whether I like them, right? Not just once, but like a bunch of times, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, that's a terrible way to use time. Like, I'm not that important. And the fact that, I mean, I'm important, but I'm not more important than anybody else. And it's like, really? And then it's like, why not come and ask me why I didn't like it? You know what I mean? Like, are we 11 years old? And like, what's going on? And I'm just sharing that with you because that's also shadow work. When we have to like private message about it and we don't communicate about it, it's because it's weird, fucked up shadow shit. And it's just like, are you kidding me right now? And so then I would go and I would make sure that whoever the people are that they mentioned, that I would spend more time consciously liking their posts. I mean, this last time this happened in this way was about a year ago. Okay. And then I would stop and go, now I'm playing the game. Now I'm feeding into, oh, well, she's liking my stuff again, so that must mean, she likes me or whatever. And again, it feeds into this thing of thinking that there's something different about me, that it's more important that I like a post than that, Jim or Bob or Joe likes your post. I share that with you because it's one example of the ways that we can go from using Facebook in a really good, productive way together. And she was clear about that too. Do you think so? Seriously, it's well. Oh yeah, that's some serious wisdom right now. It's like it can divert you, and I had to be very careful sometimes. I mentioned this. I think I was on Instagram when I talked about this. Like, outside of the academic world where people knew who I was, nobody really knew who I was until I was 38. Now a lot of people know who I am, and it's a weird thing, right? Because it's like they don't really know me, but they think they know me, and so there's all these assumptions, and I have had to like disconnect myself from that, because if I start to think I am who they think I am, I'm going to lose the sight of who I actually am, which is why I do a lot of plant ceremony. Because in plant ceremony, I get real deal. Like nobody's blowing smoke up my ass. Nobody is kissing my ass, and sometimes they're really hard on me, but it's all accurate. You know what I mean? It's not like there's no messages in the spirit world of like anything really to support your ego. All the messages there are like, you're doing some things that are good and we thank you for it, but you're also making some mistakes and we'd like to see you do less of this other stuff. And I appreciate that, right? I really value that. That's right. Janet says, I feel everyone in my heart, and that makes me happy just knowing they're there. I don't need them to tell me. And look, here's the other side of that. Sometimes it is nice to hear good things. Sometimes it is nice to hear, wow, I'm really sorry you're going through that. I can't fix it for you, but shit, I wish I could. You know what I mean? Or wow, I want you to know that you've been on my mind all day, and sometimes that just feels really, really, really good. And I think that's okay. Again, I don't think of that as being not clean relationship, because that's you saying, you know what? Feels good right now to hear that. It's not feeding my ego, it's feeding my soul, just to know that I'm not alone. And so I want to continue to remind you that is the purpose of our spaces, is to be that. And there are going to be times, as I'm sure for many of you, how many things of yours have I read where you've bared your soul? And I've bared mine too. I'm sure you see, those of you who are personal friends with me on Facebook, I'm sure you see I don't share in my personal Facebook the way I do in my Facebook groups. I'm such an open book to you guys. You literally could ask me anything, and I would answer you as honestly as I can. I have never made up an answer. I have never withheld my own struggles or challenges. There's nothing you couldn't ask me. You may not like what I say, because I'm going to be really honest about it, but there's no part of my life really that's off limits. I am really an open book, but that's also a product of healing. There were times in my life where I was private about my MS, private about the fact that David and I struggled in our relationship at a certain point, private about the fact that my daughter almost died of her disease, right? Like, there are times in my life where I did sort of hold back little bits on those things, but then ultimately, as I push through and realize that when I share those things, it tells you it's okay to share too. And unless we share and get that shit out in the open, it turns to shadow. It starts being these little secrets and these little things that you don't talk about. And then people, well, and I appreciate that, Nathan, because I want you to feel that way. I want you to feel that when you look at me, there is no projection back onto you. I'm not at all trying to do that, because I have a lot of clarity about my own stuff. Not that my own stuff's good or easy, but I have a lot of clarity about it, and I kind of have a path through it. But we're all human. Like, it's not like you're pushing pause today and nothing's ever going to happen to you again. So what happens with the next round of challenges? What happens with the next round of disappointments? What happens with the next round of hurts, Well, thank you for that, Anna, because that's my intention, right? It's like how to share. And sometimes you share and afterward you go, well, should I have shared? But what's the alternative? Our whole world is so hungry for transparency. And for somebody to name things that just aren't being named. And I'm not even, I will tell you, politics never fucking crosses my mind. I got bigger problems. You know what I mean? Like, what's happening in our political situation is such a symptom of a problem, not a problem itself, that I spend about 2 seconds there before I go back into the bigger issues. And in fact, I tried to even ask. I briefly asked about politics in the journey. And do you know what the mother said back to me? Focus on problems, not symptoms. And then completely turned away from that. And I took that as a very strong, she was like, nope, We're going to focus on problems, not on symptoms of problems. And I said, okay. So show me the problems. And that's where she took me to the complete, the whole part of that journey was yin yang, and the waters were flowing together. And she kept, I got chills all over as I tell you this. She kept immediately, she took me into this watery yin yang, and she kept showing me it's all out of balance. It's all out of balance. She not when she communicates with me. She doesn't show up as a face. It's a voice, though. It's a voice, and it's a powerful voice. It's an audible voice. It's a very powerful audible voice. But she really was. She's like, it's all out of balance. And then showing me the yin and the yang, and like at certain points it was equal white and black, and then it would go all black, and then it would go all white. And she was like, it's almost like I couldn't even find, in the yin yang you sort of follow the line. I couldn't even find the line between, and it was like, ugh. And it is a lovely voice, but it's a stern voice. There was a moment in the journey, and my shaman is really amazing because he sees when the screen's about to turn before I do. So he would kind of prepare me like, okay, so we're about to move through to the next place. And so he did that, and then the next thing I heard, very clearly she said, well, hello, Athena, goddess of wisdom, who does not have all the answers. And I just burst into tears. I mean, it's a very soft, like, well, hello, Athena, goddess of wisdom, who does not have all the answers. And the whole rest of the journey was about leading me to let go of feeling like I needed to. You know what I mean? It was a big boom. And I just burst into tears. But then she went into, how did you get that name, Athena? And she made me tell the whole story. Again, my name on my birth certificate was Jennifer. My dad couldn't pronounce it. My mom and dad ended up getting into a fight about it. My mom said, well, then you go ahead and choose a name for her that you can pronounce. And my dad turned around and said, Athena. And so my mom said, okay, to the nurse, Athena. Like, they didn't want to fight about it anymore. But it was like, my dad could not say Jennifer. His Greek accent's really, really thick. And my mom really wanted my name to be Jennifer. It was the number one girl's name in 1973. And so literally my birth certificate had Jennifer crossed out Athena above it. So she said, your name is your name, but you need to recognize the difference between you and that. Right? And take sort of the pressure off, because you will not have all the answers while you're in a body. She was so clear about it, right? So I am Athena, goddess of wisdom, who does not have all the answers. Oh, I love that. Millie said, my mom picked my name from the baby name book because she couldn't translate. Milia means apple. Yep. Isn't that awesome? I love that so much. Well, Sarah has always been one of my favorite names because Sarah is my favorite Fleetwood Mac song. I cannot listen to the song Sarah without bursting into open tears, which is why if it comes on the radio or it's on in a store, I have to leave the store, because it was a very specific relationship and a very specific breakup, and he always told me I would be the poet in his heart, and still when I hear it, it just, heart comes out. So that's still a little bit of unhealed space. Right? It's an interesting thing. Well, and our names are very powerful, right? Your names have so much to remind you of, right? And I think I was pretty mindful when I named my kids. They are so much their names, right? Zoe means life in Greek, and Nikos is the victor of the people. Stands up for the little person or the underdog. And that's exactly who my kids are. Nick is a great defender of people, and Zoe is a party in a box, for better or worse, right? Isn't that interesting? Janet said, my mom had two sets of twins. My sisters, my mom wanted Joanne and dad wanted Marion, so they got Joanne, Marion, and Marion, Joanne. They're like inverse versions of each other. I love that so much. That's really, really cool. I have to agree with you, Santa Priya. And your name, your names all suit you, don't you think? I mean, it's like it's so funny how at the end of the day, whether it was like this huge predestined thing, or in my case, my mom just getting super pissed at my dad. And honestly, it was a conversation about like, we've been here for this so long, and how do you still have an accent? And my mom was really resentful about it, because most people who come here and are here for as long as, I mean, he came here when he was 16, and he was 35 when I was born. So she was just like, why do you have an accent and you can't say anything in English? Okay, you pick a name. I think not great. Put it on this birth certificate. It's like, okay, well, here we are. Talk about a last minute decision that impacts the rest of someone's life forever and ever until they're laying on a mat listening to the mother of time and energy talking to her about how she doesn't know everything, in fact. Oh, Amanda. Well, Amanda's a magical name for me because of its root in Latin meaning loved, right? Amada is in Spanish the word for loved. And Amanda, of course, comes from the same Latin root. And what I love about Amanda is it's not love in the present tense. It's loved as in you have always been loved. And so Amanda was actually a name on my radar when Zoe was born because of the fact that it means, to me, the name Amanda is the eternal love story. It is one who has always been loved, not just one who is loved now. So I don't know if that helps you fall in love with your name a little bit more, Amanda, but it's the reason that I love Amanda and very much considered it for Zoe, because she was always loved since before she was conceived. And so I wanted to, yeah, it's true. Do you love it a little bit more now that you know that? Amada, you are loved and have always been loved, which is really, really interesting. You're welcome. And of course, Scarlet, named after Gone with the Wind, which, I mean, come on, if that isn't a gorgeous, sexy name, I don't know. See, I would have given anything for a Scarlet when I was little. I wanted something a little less like out of the weird mythology book. Because let me tell you, it's not super fun to be Athena in like third grade, when you want the boys to like you and they get to the part about you in the book and she's standing there with a shield and the spear and she looks like she's going to bite your face off. And then it's like, oh, you're not the goddess of love? No, I'm the goddess of wisdom. And boys are like, yeah, that's really true. It's like, well, not the sexiest thing on the planet, but you know what? I'm real smart. If you stick with me, I'm going to go places, but you can't really convince 9-year-old boys that that's really true. I thought Crystal was a beautiful name too. By the way, my daughter says she wants to name her daughter Crystal one day. But I think every little girl wants to name their daughter Crystal when they're little. I think it's like it's a magical name, and so I think when we're little, we're really drawn to these magical names, which is interesting too. So anyway, we got on this name topic, but your name has a shadow too, right? On the one hand, my name is the magic of wisdom, right? Athena is the goddess of wisdom. On the other hand, she was not born of love. She was born of an immaculate union, right? So she was born fully grown from her father's head. There was no mother. There's a shadow around my name in that way. I think that's why I've never had a relationship with my mother, really. I don't know how to have a mother, and which meant also I didn't know how to be a mother, so I had to learn how to be a mother by becoming a mother and make it up as I went along, because I didn't have the kind of example that I wanted to have, and I'm still having to figure that shit out. If that isn't a light and shadow of a name, I kind of don't know what is, right? So yeah, you get all the wisdom, but you also get the mother wound, right? And so thank you for that, Cecilia. I think, and that came through, I've done Aya before, but this journey was a little bit different. And there definitely was a sense of like, let that shit go. I'm sorry you didn't get the one, I'm sorry that you didn't have a good model for how to do it yourself, but I'm here, you're learning now, and it's all going to be fine. Just knock that shit off. So I definitely got a lot of messages like that. Look at that. Eve said, my name got us kicked out of paradise. Right? Cynthia, Cynthus, right? Artemis, Diana, Celine. That's right. And it suits you on every level because your name is your magic. right? And there's that Cindy Crow Conti, there's an alliteration around that letter too. There's a rhythm to your name that I've always resonated with it. Look at that. Olya says, well, shit, makes sense. My full name, Olga, and just as original Saint Olga, I will kill for anyone, the one I love, right? It's like the intensity of the love connected to it. Well, that's interesting. Nathan wants to name his child Berlin. Berlin. That's a beautiful name, actually. And I think when you name your child after a place, that has its own resonance, its own shadow, its own light, right? It's like all the energies of those places get stirred up too. Names are no joke. And in fact, I think I learned more about names by naming people. And I've been really blessed. I've had a couple of clients and friends who have asked me to choose their children's names. So I have named several children, which at the time, each time it happens, it feels like this huge pressure. And yet I always kind of know that what comes through is what was meant to come through, and people ask me to do that for a reason, because and obviously I never say, well, you have to choose this name, but whenever I have given a suggestion, they've always used it. And it's this really beautiful thing to think that I have had a hand in sort of assessing the energy of a child in utero and thinking, allowing a name to be channeled through. It's a pretty profound thing. Jared's son is Guardian Freeland. Guardian. Like, that just makes you smile. You know what I mean? That's just beautiful. I love that. I love, love, love that. Yes, so I have been to Shasta only one time, but what an incredible experience. And in fact, yesterday we had, I don't know if you saw during the live specimen sale, but I have a woman who goes to Shasta a couple times a year and gathers branches and then makes wands out of them. And it's so accurate, the energy of those wands, having been there, that I think even if you never went to Shasta, there's something about anything that comes from that place which is pretty incredible, just the energy field of it. So Sheree just looked up the meaning of her name, and it says, you're spiritually intense and can sting or charm. So is there a snake energy to it, Sheree? Is there some kind of snake energy? The meaning or the translation seems to have there's a sort of a snake energy. I don't know how else to explain it or to describe it. So yeah, Terry, I did. I actually channeled all of the programs for next year during Journey, and it was pretty. I've written some of it down, and I'm still discussing it with my team. I basically came out of the Journey, wrote it all down, and Monday morning sat everybody down and said, here's 2019. And everybody was like, it's like, of course here's 2019. Mm-hmm. And so she showed me what every session is supposed to be over the course of each month, and exactly the tools that we're supposed to use, and exactly the concepts that we're supposed to talk about, and the themes that we're supposed to align to. And it was like, and Dave would tell you, because I was channeling and downloading it all weekend. And when I finally came to him, I said, can you sit down so I can just like talk this through, because I'm just holding it all. And he saw me. I was literally I was shaking until I got it all out, and then I stopped shaking. It was like this information trying to get through, and I as long as I was holding it in my body, because it was so big for next year, it's like there are so many tentacles to it, right? Like the work that we do in this area affects the work that we do in this other area, and then how do we pick up and include that framework? And oh wait, don't forget this other piece over here. And it was like I literally was like this until I explained it all, and then it was like my batteries, 2019 is just going to be integrated. We're not going to do this over here and that over there and this other thing here and this other thing over here, and then there's a face group for this over here and a Facebook group for this over there, and but don't forget the Facebook group for that over there. And then no, we don't talk about gems over here, we only talk about gems over here. She was a little bit critical of me. She was like, thank you for the work that you do, but do you realize that people have to go over here and then go over here and then learn this here and integrate it here, and there's a Facebook there, blah, 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 and then there's a book here, but the book doesn't connect to that, but then that doesn't connect to this. And she was just like, no. No. But I am still sitting with the question of, does it need to be Sage Goddess University? And is that even a concept that really resonates with you guys? Or does it need to be different than that? You know what I mean? Like she resists the idea of a university or like a anything too heavy around like the teaching or the this. It's sort of like anytime I would start to go into, it's too much this, it's too much healing this, or too much university this, or too much, she would just be like, you got to break those boundaries up a little bit. Again, it starts looking siloed, but the reality is it's all these things together. So that's what I'm playing with right now. You know what I mean? It's like I haven't fully breathed life into all of it, but I have breathed life into themes, tools, topics, format, structure, like all of that is sort of laid out. And so as soon as I will tell you, it looks like it's going to begin in December with something of a commitment. And she hasn't shown me exactly what that is, but it's going to be a ceremony, a clearing and a commitment in December, which will allow us to start working together in a very small way to get each other through the holidays. Do you know what I mean? Usually it's like the programs are ending and the energy is unwinding, and then we don't really start anything new till January. And what she was showing me is, no, let the new come in and sort of nourish you and everybody else as you go through the holidays. And then it's like, then starting in January, we just continue and speed up. But there's not really much to do. It's just going to be probably a 1-hour gathering in December, just for commitment and clearing to prepare you energetically. So, we don't know when exactly that's going to happen, but it'll be before the holidays so that everybody isn't like, out of town and not able to participate. So as soon as we get all that kind of lined up with details, I'll be sharing that with you guys, and I'm really excited about it. I'm more excited about it than I was a week ago because of the affirmation from her. And honestly, the programs wouldn't be what they are going to be next year without that journey. So I'm so grateful because I have a place to go for guidance. And I've been invited one more time to journey right after the sabbatical retreat on November 2nd into the 3rd. So it's looking like I might go in one more time before too long to get additional guidance to support the work too. So we'll see. I'm still so tired that it's hard to imagine starting the dieta all over again right now and getting ready. Ayahuasca is exhausting. It is absolutely, at least for me, because of the food preparation and the things that you can't do and can't eat and can't, it's exhausting. So I have to really weigh that. No, you don't sleep. You don't sleep during. It's at least for me, ayahuasca is it's a dialogic medicine. So there's a constant, I'm talking, she's talking, I'm talking, she's talking for the 6 or 8 hours. And then afterward, I can't sleep at all for more than 2 or 3 hours because the energy is running through you so fast, and it's very hard to sleep that way. And you don't have any crutches, right? It's not like you can't have a glass of wine. There's nothing really to depress your central nervous system. So you have to just let the energy run. So after ayahuasca, I tend to sleep in like 2-hour windows, but a lot of those. So like the next day I would sleep 2 hours, wake 2 hours, sleep 2 hours, wake 2 hours. And the next day I would be able to stay awake for 6 hours. The next day I was able to stay awake for almost a regular 12 hours. So it's like I try to stretch it out with each day. That's a great question, Oya. Yes, there was some guidance about the earth. Santa Priya, I wish there was space. The retreat is full with a huge extended waiting list, but we are going to do it next year, and those who didn't come this year are going to be priority to register for next year. So have no fear, and it'll be here before we know it. I am still remembering things, Lauren, and I've written about 30 pages since Sunday, and that's not an exaggeration, about 30 single-space pages. Keep in mind my full books are about 120 single-space pages, and that's 200-page books, so I've almost written half a book coming out of my, or a quarter of a book. But that's how I process. It's not cute writing, do you know what I mean? It's download. I mean, I literally was sitting there all day just boom, 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 because it's channeling. So half of it probably wouldn't make sense to you, and then the other half would make sense, but it's not neat, tidy in paragraphs with cute punctuation and stuff. It's kind of like a brain drain. I can make sense of it, you know what I mean? And everything is in there about programs. And she sent 10 blog posts through me, and so now I have to schedule those. She gave me a blog post on the 3 ways to surrender, mentally, physically, and spiritually surrendering. She gave me a blog post about how to hold ethical space in social media as a medicine person. She gave me a blog post on what to do when you experience trauma and extreme stress, the 5 steps to navigate it. She gave me another blog post on, it's just, then they all just came through. So I just sat and boom, 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 boom. Blog number 4, boom, 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 boom. Blog 5, boom, 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 boom. So that all came through. But the number one thing she said about the planet is, like I said, she said, look at actions, not words. She was like, just don't look at the news. The news is being curated, right? No matter what side of the aisle you're on. So look at actions and outcomes. Don't look at words when it comes to world events. And the actions will show you the truth. The words will not. So that's what she said. She said that there is no flow and there is no boundary between the feminine and the masculine, and that boundary has always protected us. And it was a really interesting thing because I pushed back on her and I said, do you mean the inequality between men and women? And she said, no, I'm not saying that inequality protects us. I'm saying that boundaries between men and women protect us. And, it's starting to be this place where we don't know where the feminine ends and the masculine begins. And so she talked to me about like being a good teacher of that, of being able to articulate the distinction between the feminine and the masculine so that we can better understand and negotiate the boundary between the two. Emily, it's a great question, right? It's sort of like, the surrender blog, by the way, is going to be the big, I think they're all interesting, but I think you're really going to enjoy the surrender blog, and I'll get it into your hands as soon as I can because I think those are my public service announcements from the mama. But I think that the best thing that we can do, Emily, is try to consciously work on and strengthen the feminine and the masculine within us. Does that make sense? And honoring and acknowledging what is in you that's the feminine, and acknowledging what is in you that's the masculine, and really starting to understand both the duality, the integration, and the separation of them. And making sure that it's 50-50, right? Not too much into the compassion and the, she's quite masculine, and she gets on our case when we're too much the mother and not enough the father. Do you know what I mean? It's like too much compassion, sympathy can lead to dysfunction. And that's where we have to stop and say, okay, the masculine, you got to take responsibility for your shit. You can't expect other people to solve your problems. There is a direct way through your challenges. And part of it is, consistently and persistently looking for, the path forward. What's next? Where do we go? And so it's like this, she's like, we're so much in the feminine that we're giving away our power. And then the masculine has to swoop up and say, nope, you can't have my power, right? And so what a fascinating, if you were to look at world events through her lens, politics would never cross your mind. And yet all of us are like, ooh, politics, doomsday must be, and it's like, they're not that concerned, at least from what I could see. They're far more concerned with the state of the planet and the fact that what we see as political challenges are a symptom of a problem, but they're not the problem itself. And that if we could solve the problem, we would solve the symptom, but we don't even know what the problem is. So we all sit here like rats on a wheel thinking it's about this, and it's about that, and it's about this, and it's about that. And meanwhile, they're over here going, they don't even see, you guys. They don't even see, So thank you for that, Sarah. It's really interesting because one of my deepest desires is to see medicine work available on a broader scale. And the challenge is there's so much anxiety about it that it's considered to be a more serious, dangerous thing than opioid painkillers, right? And so, at least in terms of the FDA and how they see it. So my hope is that there'll be a shift in my lifetime where we don't have to be so secretive and not sharing this medicine and not exposing people to it, because we know that ayahuasca it cures alcoholism, it cures dependency on drugs, it cures depression and anxiety. My shaman was saying he had a client who was so committed to getting off her antidepressants that she found a way, because you can't be on antidepressants and take ayahuasca. It's very deadly, actually. And so he was like, if you want to try, you got to get off of them. And so the woman went for a whole year on a process to wean herself off, to be off of them for 2 weeks so that she could do the ayahuasca, and never went back on them. I mean, depression gone, anxiety gone, everything. And it's like, he's like, but I don't even really talk about her as an example, because how many people can actually do that? And is it safe for them to do that, to wean themselves off? Do the benefits outweigh the drawbacks? And for a lot of people, it's not possible. But I think about my aunt who died of cirrhosis of the liver at 39, and that was in 1980. It was a long time ago. But she had 5 children, but her alcoholism was rampant, and she could not stop drinking, and she thought she had no options. And I think if I knew then what I know now, I would have grabbed her so fast and said, everybody will see you in 2 days. And I would have taken her and I would have helped her. And I just, not the right age, not the right time. No one knew, no one helped, no one knew. So it's like, sometimes I feel that sadness too. It's like, I could have saved people in my own family had I known what I know now and been there at the time. But at the time, you have to trust it all happens in perfect time. But I could feel her, even as I was going into my journey. Sometimes I feel her there, and she's always there, like, yes, good for you, and good for you for, not repeating patterns, and good for you for, finding the medicine, and good for you for being able to live a life that's free of dependencies. Like, I always feel the reinforcement and the pride coming from that energy stream. So pretty powerful stuff. So this was a pretty chill debrief, but kind of an interesting one too, wasn't it? We went a bunch of different places today. It was an honor to be with you guys. I want you to know that I love you and I appreciate you, and I'm grateful because I see you guys standing up, right, in the wisdom of our space. I see you getting your legs underneath you, and I see you transforming. It's really, really powerful to witness it. And so I'm bowing to you, truly, truly. Thank you for being here. And I feel all that love too. And I'm grateful for it. We are truly blessed to have this time, to have this space, to have each other. Like, not a day goes by, and especially not in a medicine space, where I don't stop and just say, wow, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this work, because when you do this work, you heal yourself, which heals me, heals your family, heals the community, heals the planet. And she shows that to me every journey. Look at that. She'll say things. She'll pull up you guys sometimes in journey and say, Emily, she'll pull up a name and she'll say, Emily, look at what Emily's doing in her family. And then look how and she'll show me like the tendrils. And it's like, it's so beautiful to see. And she'll say, that's just Emily. And it's like, how fun it is for me. I know that, but it's so cool to go into journey and have her just be like, and she'll be like, and then Karen, do you see what Karen's doing? And then when Karen unlocks that, and then that leads to that, and that leads to that, and that leads to that. And you just see it inspires and it encourages and reminds me. And then I hope by sharing you, it reminds you too, that you may think that you're making one little shift in your life, and does it matter, and does anybody see it? And it's like, oh man, not only do I see it, I feel it. And she's shown me the web, and it's like the tentacles of what you do. You'll never fully know. There are many people who are grateful to you for the work that you do, here and there, and they see you. So thank you. It's really true. We are the flower of life. And, it reminds me when I was a little girl, my grandmother was a minister, and she used to read the Bible to me a lot. And she used to talk about how, like, even the hairs on your head are counted by God. God knows exactly how many hairs there are on your head. And I used to go, really? You got a lot of hair. It's just like, yeah. And it's really a metaphor of like, I believe God does know how many hairs there are on your head. And I do believe that the mother sees every fucking hard choice that you make. And every time you stop and you say, I'm not gonna do that dysfunctional thing. I'm not gonna participate in that anymore. I'm not gonna take that drink. I'm not gonna smoke that. I'm not going to shut that feeling down. I'm not going to participate in whatever that dynamic is. And I think she sees every single moment, and it's a constant, and then a, right? You're doing the hard work. That people generations before you didn't have the strength to do it. But you said yes. So aho to you. And the last thing I want to leave you with is this. This was the shadow wisdom of the journey. You ready? At least I thought it was profound. She said, I asked her about shadow work specifically. And I said, you know, the number one question I get asked is, when is it over? When is shadow work over? Because people are always like, is it like forever? What is it? And you know what she said to me? She said, let me tell you why shadow work never ends. Because she said, the brighter your light gets, the more your shadow expands. It's an even balance. So the only way, she said, to stop yourself from having to do shadow work, the only way is to not grow spiritually. If you're going to grow spiritually, your light's going to expand, and then your shadow has to necessarily expand in the opposite direction to balance you. And so, you know, what she was saying that means for me is, because the question always exists for me too, how many more times do I need to go into ayahuasca space? It's hard work. It's not a fun day, okay? I mean, it's hard flipping work. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable. Sometimes it's beautiful. And so I asked her, how many more times will I need to come into medicine space? And she said, I don't know. How much longer do you want to do this work? And I was like, oh. OLAS 2.0. That's right. Diana said spider building her web was what was shown to me during Journey. Isn't that beautiful? You are the spider building her web, right? It's a strong-ass web. Yeah, no, she did. She was like, oh, you don't have to do shadow work if you don't evolve spiritually. Yeah, you can just stay stuck. And yeah. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, like, when does it end if you're doing your spiritual work? And she was like, oh, never. If you continue to expand spiritually, your shadow expands. And then almost like, duh. And I was like, okay. Okay. Right? So, cheers to a never-ending shadow journey. But OLAS 2.0 is next year's programs. It's part of the wheel of the work that we're going to do. So if you enjoyed this and you want 2.0, next year's programs is your 2.0, because we're going to be dealing with it head on. And it's going to be part of our regular courses. It's not going to be a bonus something. Never ending shadow. 'Tis the season. Aho, and on we go. All right, I'm going to go get ready for a sabbatical. I'm probably going to push Sab back about 10 minutes to 10 minutes over the hour. I've got one quick thing I have to do in between. So stand by. I'll see you in just a little bit. Thank you for being here, you guys, and cheers. If you didn't see or listen to the audio today, take a few minutes. I think you'll appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Okay. Let's see. What do we see? Are we live, Dave?